We live in a world full of debates, most of the time if things are real or fake. Things like jewelry, links inside emails, body parts. But fantasy football itself has its own set of issues. Are these late round sleepers the real deal, or are they so fake we should just ignore them? What is going on, Headliner Nation? Hopefully everyone's doing well out there today, where yes, we're gonna be talking about a few late round sleepers and whether or not they have that real deal sleeper potential, or are they just fool's gold? But as we get into today's video, I want to start off with a question. Who is one player that you have drafted as a sleeper during your fantasy football career that you will never forget? Leave that player's name down below in the comment section. I would love to see some of the names you guys come up with. But I also want to set a like goal on this video as well, so I can give away a free draft guide. If this video right here can get at least 750 likes, I'll pick a random commenter from down below to give them a free draft guide. So you know what to do. Hit the like button, leave your comments below, and let's look at a few late round sleepers, at least potential sleepers for 2024. And we're starting off with Will Levis, quarterback for the Tennessee Titans, currently the quarterback 24 overall in consensus rankings. Now really, this one is more so for those of you who play in super flex leagues or two quarterback leagues, but I did want to take a second to talk about him. Now, he came in around mid-season of 2023 and had one of the best first games ever by a rookie quarterback in the NFL. 238 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, and got the win. Now, after that game was over, dude really wasn't fantasy usable at all, only had 4 touchdowns total the rest of the season. But this is why it is so important to not carry the previous year's bias into the current year. Last year, Will Levis had DeAndre Hopkins, and really that was about it. The next leading receivers in Tennessee, do you know who they were? It was Chris Moore and Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. Yeah, you probably don't even know who those guys are. But it was also a different coaching staff. Mike Vrabel was in town. They had a heavy run-focused offense with Derrick Henry. Well, now Mike Vrabel is gone, and the new head coach in Tennessee is Brian Callahan. He is the former offensive coordinator in Cincinnati over the last 5 seasons. Over that span, in those 5 years, he has had a passing offense that ranks inside the top 15 in the NFL when it comes to pass attempts 4 out of 5 years. But then they made a very conscious effort to improve the passing game during free agency. They brought in Calvin Ridley. They brought in Tyler Boyd. There's another Cincinnati connection right there to Brian Callahan as well. But they also brought in Tony Pollard, a running back that is very capable of catching passes out of the backfield. But they didn't even stop there. They also took one of the best offensive linemen in the NFL draft this year with J.C. Latham in the first round. They are trying so hard to help out Will Levis. We now have a pass-heavy head coach in Brian Callahan, 3 veteran wide receivers that can definitely help out a young quarterback, a pass-catching running back in Tony Pollard. Don't forget about tight end Chiggy Oko as well, and an improved offensive line on top of all of that. Now, Will Levis may not be some top 10 fantasy quarterback, but as a late round sleeper, it's real. Up next, it's Gus Edwards, running back now of the Los Angeles Chargers, currently running back 35 overall. Now, so many people right now are looking at Gus Edwards as one of those late round sleepers they definitely want to have in 2024. He's no longer in Baltimore. He was brought over to the Chargers, and he really fits the style that new head coach Jim Harbaugh wants, more power than speed. But then the Chargers went out and brought over the other running back from Baltimore, J.K. Dobbins. Now, are we really worried about a running back that has suffered multiple major injuries and missed 25 games over the last 2 seasons alone? Not really. J.K. Dobbins has torn his ACL, a hamstring, and his Achilles just over the last 3 seasons. And don't even get me started on the lack of running backs in the NFL that actually successfully come back and produce off of a torn Achilles. It just doesn't happen very often. Do y'all remember just a couple years ago with James Robinson? That dude had some serious truthers after his Achilles injury. I haven't heard from those guys in years now. But that's not the end of it. Then the Chargers went out and they drafted Kamani Vidal in the NFL draft. That right there kind of raised some eyebrows. Now, most of you watching this video may not know anything about him. Well, over the last 2 years in college, he had a total 3,100 yards and 25 touchdowns, a third-team All-American, the Sun Belt Offensive Player of the Year, and he averages over 20 touches a game. He's 5'8", 213 pounds, and if you watch some of his film, he is a mixture of Doug Martin and the last running back that Jim Harbaugh coached in the NFL, Frank Gore. He's really a bland runner, but he gets the damn job done, and he can handle a large workload and is definitely going to challenge for a role in this offense early. And this is really not what you want to hear if you're Gus Edwards. Let's not just forget that Gus Edwards hasn't exactly been some perfectly healthy workhorse running back his entire career either. Gus has never had over 210 touches in a season and has never even had 1,000 total yards in a season in his career. There is so much unknown in this LA offense, and what is it really going to look like? Gus may be one of those early season guys that comes out and produces early. Maybe he starts off a little bit hot, and if he does, I'm going to think about trading him at that point for a slower starting stud. It happens every single year. Somebody will draft a stud running back, they start off a little bit slow, and they just abandon ship way too early. And for that reason, I'm leaning towards fool's gold when it comes to Gus Edwards. Up next is Mike Williams, wide receiver for the New York Jets, currently the wide receiver 51 overall. But I heard it through the screen. It was a little disgusting, but I heard you gag when I said his name. But the facts are the facts, and Mike Williams has finished as a top 10 wide receiver before in fantasy football. It's not a talent issue. It's not an opportunity issue. It is 100% strictly a health issue. But at wide receiver 51, into the double-digit rounds, at some point, he's going to be worth the risk. Especially when you consider the fact that other wide receivers around him are the likes of Romeo Doubs, rookie Brian Thomas Jr. in Jacksonville. How about Josh Downs, Jerry Jeudy? None of those guys are clear-cut immediate studs either. But we need to look at this a little bit differently because he's not in LA anymore. Now he's with the Jets and with Aaron Rodgers. Now, similar to his time in LA, he is once again the wide receiver 2 on this team. Garrett Wilson, he's going to stay the number 1 there. But since Robert Saleh has taken over the Jets, they have been a top 13 passing offense when it comes to passing attempts each and every year. They're going to throw the ball. And they did all that in the past without Aaron Rodgers. There will be more than enough volume in this offense to support 2 wide receivers. But here's where I have a little bit of concern. The Jets did just go out and draft wide receiver Malachi Corley in the 3rd round. We already know that Breece Hall, he's in the backfield. He's going to eat up a ton of touches. But like I said at the start, it really is just going to come down to the health of Mike Williams. He hasn't played a full season in the NFL since 2018. It is 2024, y'all. Now, while I do think that his draft value is safe enough for you to draft him, I don't really view him as some must-have sleeper. He really is more fool's gold to me. But I will say this. If I'm in the double-digit rounds of my fantasy football draft and I am not happy with the overall group of wide receivers that I have on my team, I will risk it with Mike Williams. Now, other wide receivers around him may be safer, but if I'm looking for some sort of desperation, potential high upside play, that's when Mike Williams becomes an option. Which then brings us to another running back. It's Antonio Gibson of now the New England Patriots, the current RB 44 overall in the consensus rankings. And is Antonio Gibson not good anymore? Or was he just hated and not used by Ron Rivera in Washington? Because he started off his career pretty good. Back-to-back seasons with at least 1,000 total yards and 10-plus touchdowns. I mean, the guy had 300 touches, 1,300 total yards, and 10 touchdowns in 2021. Then, over the last 2 seasons, only had a total of 308 touches for 1,500 total yards and 8 touchdowns. The guy was a top 10 overall running back in 2021 and then just completely disappeared. Now, a lot of people are gonna bring up the fumbles as to the reasons why he basically lost his job. Now, Gibson has lost 8 fumbles over the last 4 years. That number isn't overly crazy. No, I get it. It's not ideal, but in a way, it's a little bit overblown in my opinion. But that chapter of his career is now over. Now he finds himself in New England, where he just signed a new 3-year deal. Now, yes, Ramondre Stevenson, probably going to be the RB1, should have a large role once again in this offense. But this new coaching staff made it a point to bring in Antonio Gibson during free agency. You cannot forget that New England, as of right now, has a bunch of jag wide receivers, just a guy, right? I mean, we got Kendrick Bourne, Demario Douglas, KJ Osborne, Juju Smith-Schuster. They just drafted 2 rookies in Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. We got Hunter Henry at tight end. Established roles in this offense are definitely up for grabs. You can't look at this overall offense right now and really have any idea of what it's going to look like. And that's where the opportunity comes in, because if the Patriots didn't want Antonio Gibson, they wouldn't have brought him in and signed him in free agency. He's a former college wide receiver, and since 2021, there are only 6 running backs in the NFL that have more receiving yards than Antonio Gibson. When you look at the current ADP of where he's going to be drafted, we're going to have the likes of Blake Corum and Chase Brown being drafted ahead of him. How are their situations any better? You have an offense that needs playmakers. You have a player that this coaching regime wanted to bring in. You have a crazy low price on draft day where really there's little to no risk to your fantasy team. You also have a player that has performed at a high level on the field and in fantasy football before when he was given a chance. Now, I don't know about you, but to me, that sounds like you have yourself a real deal sleeper that you probably need to target on draft day. Which takes us to Davian Wicks, wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers, currently the wide receiver 68 overall. And I have to ask it, is Davian Wicks the most underrated wide receiver in Green Bay right now? Now, if you've watched this show for any length of time, you know I love myself some Jaden Reed. I've been on that bandwagon for a while. But there is a legit chance that Davian Wicks is a top weapon for this Green Bay offense in 2024. He just showed last year, in his rookie year of 2023, that not only could he get open, but he could make defenders miss and do something with the ball once it was in his hand. Because from weeks 11 on, he averaged 5 targets, 4 catches, 57 yards, and 1 touchdown every 2 games. If you take those averages and put them over a 17-game span, it comes out to be 85 targets, 68 receptions, 969 yards receiving, and 8 touchdowns. But I'm sure you hear that stat line and you go, you know what, Jake? That's really not that great. He's the current wide receiver 68. That's 165th overall in the consensus rankings. The wide receiver 68 last year was Demario Douglas, and he only had a total of 600 yards and no touchdowns. Christian Watson has already proven he cannot stay healthy, he cannot stay on the field. Jordan Love has already shown that he's going to look the way of Davian Wicks. We've already seen it last season. As a super late round pick, Davian Wicks is a real deal sleeper. Which only leaves us a tight end, the football kind. Of course, we're going to keep it classy. It's Jonnu Smith of now the Miami Dolphins, currently the tight end 37 overall. So let me get this straight. We have the starting tight end for one of the highest scoring teams in the NFL, and he's at tight end 37? He's going to go undrafted everywhere. The tight end 37 last year only scored 50.9 fantasy points for the year. Jonnu Smith scored almost double that in a horrendous Atlanta offense led by Arthur Smith and bad quarterback play just last year. And now he's going to move over to Miami, where he finds himself in the best offense he's ever played in his entire career. And he really fits what they want to do. He is a big-bodied tight end who is super athletic and can make big-time plays. Now, over his career, he's averaging 11 yards per reception. And at times last year, we saw Durham Smythe even be involved in this offense. And really, It's because we have 3 wide receivers on this team that have a little bit of a tendency of getting banged up or missing some time. Guys like Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Odell Beckham. But Miami has had a top 5 passing offense since head coach Mike McDaniel showed up in town. When I look at Jonnu Smith in Miami at the current tight end 37 overall, it screams real deal sleeper. But just because of that, I'm not going to ignore what I normally do with tight ends when it comes to fantasy football. If I drafted a high-end tight end in the earlier rounds, more than likely, I'm just going to roll with that one guy. If I miss out on one of the high-end tight ends, I will more than likely draft 2 sleepers at the tight end position and just hope that one of them turns out. And that is exactly where I see Jonnu Smith in 2024. All right, well, hopefully you've had enough time to leave that comment down below. Which sleeper over your fantasy football career will you never forget? Because I have a feeling this video is going to hit its like goal pretty quick, and you want to make sure you're in the running to get yourself a free 2024 fantasy football draft guide. Now, if you're out there saying, Jake, I just want a draft guide regardless because I want to absolutely kill it in 2024, head over to tfhdraftguide.com and get yours right now. It's already live. It's already available. There's already content up there to consume. But what's even better about that, we're going to continue to add content and update it all the way up until week 1 of the NFL season. So it doesn't matter when your draft is, we have you covered. Now I'm going to go ahead and get out of here for the day. Hopefully you enjoy the rest of your day though, and most importantly, do your part to make the world a better place.